There is only one way to survive the heat of the summer: in a body of water. Paddleboarding and SUP yoga in particular have been my hands down favorite summer activities for the last 7 years. So when Glide reached out and asked if I'd be interested in reviewing their inflatable paddleboard, it was a no-brainer. So in this video, I'm gonna quickly run through the differences and pros and cons between the inflatable boards and hardboards, and then dive into the setup, performance, and my overall experience with the Lotus inflatable board for SUP yoga. I've included timestamps, so feel free to click around the video as needed. So what are the differences between inflatable boards and hardboards, and how do you know what's best for you? Well, I think it all boils down to personal preference and also how you plan on using your board. First off, inflatable boards are super easy to transport. That shouldn't come as a huge surprise. You normally get a giant bag to carry everything in, so it's really easy to fit in a car and to carry to your destination. If you're driving anywhere with a hardboard, you have to have a roof rack, or it's not going to fit inside your vehicle. They also require a lot more storage space than an inflatable. Now, I don't have the biggest garage, and I'm not really interested in installing a wall mount or overhead storage. So I think the fact that I can easily transport and store an inflatable board is much more appealing. It's a big win. And not only are inflatable boards generally cheaper than hardboards, they also tend to be more durable. And that's because they can bend and flex more without cracking or breaking. Hardboards seem to just require a little more upkeep and care. I think it's important to mention that inflatable boards are going to be best for flat water paddling. So if you're going to be in rougher waters like the ocean, for instance, a hardboard is going to be faster and it's going to be easier to maneuver. I kind of feel like the only real downside to an inflatable board is that you have to inflate it, but in the grand scheme of things, that's really not that big of a deal. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's what is best for you. Now that we've got all that stuff out of the way, let's actually talk about Glide's inflatable Lotus board. Because it's designed with SUP yoga in mind, the deck pad is wider than other boards, so you have enough space and stability to do yoga. And hey, even if you don't do SUP yoga, I think this is still a really great choice for people who are looking for more stability or more just like physical space. And it also has a 400-pound weight capacity, which is awesome. When you get the board, it comes with a backpack, a 3-piece adjustable paddle, a pump, a fin, a coiled leash, and a repair kit. All pretty standard items for an inflatable paddleboard. Everything can fit within the backpack, and there's even a little extra room if you want to put snacks or water bottles or, whatever. And I love that they provide you with a strap that you can wrap around the board itself when it's all folded up so that it fits more easily within the backpack. And I've got to say, this is one of the nicer bags that I've seen. And you want to know why? It has wheels. This makes walking with it so much easier, but I have found that you do have to be mindful of the straps. You have to kind of tuck them in and secure them so they're not just dragging on the floor. But if you don't care, that's fine too. We have another inflatable paddleboard from Isle that they don't make anymore, but ironically, I think it had Lotus in the name. We've brought that out a number of times, and it would have been nice if that backpack had wheels. Maybe I'm a little bit too excited about the wheel option, but the backpacks are as big as me, so it's great. For the short people out there, I know you understand. The setup itself is pretty standard, but I want to highlight the quality of the pump. It feels really sturdy, and I love that you have 2 options for pumping the board.
So we had it on double action to start, and once it got really difficult to pump, we switched over to single action, which means on this way you're pumping both on the in and the up, whereas on this way you're only pumping on the down.
This matters as you're starting to build pressure within the board. And pumping up an inflatable paddleboard by using one of these pumps and not a battery powered thing, which is available and is very appealing, and I would like to get one, but it's a workout. It takes 5 or 10 minutes, but once you get to the point where there's some pressure built up within the board, it goes from not being difficult to being really difficult. So if you happen to be with somebody when you're using an inflatable paddleboard, whether it's this one or another brand, take turns. You will be really grateful. Now, when you're done inflating the board, you have to obviously remove the pump and you have to close the valve, and vice versa when you're ready to deflate it. You just gotta open the valve up and release the air. This is honestly my least favorite part of the whole inflatable paddleboarding experience, and that is just because it's so loud and it scares me every time. Okay, let's get into the good stuff. How the board actually performs. Now, I am using this board for its intended purpose, for SUP yoga. And I've actually used this board multiple times because the SUP yoga classes that I normally take and also assist, I did go through their teacher training certification program, but they use these boards. To my surprise, I actually prefer practicing yoga on the inflatable boards and not the hard boards, which the studio does have, but I'll get into that in a minute. But I've found the inflatable boards to feel more stable. In fact, the most challenging thing that I've ever done, which was last summer, that was done on this board. So when you're doing more advanced stuff like handstands or arm balances and stuff where you want to be as stable as possible, you don't want the board moving or like rocking back and forth a lot. So the more stability, the better. But I'll admit, falling in the water is probably one of the best parts about SUP yoga. And the studio has the inflatable and hardboard version of Glide's SUP yoga line. So they have this board and they have like the hardboard version. That's what I'm trying to say. Now they got these boards in 2021 and I have to say I am really, really impressed by how well specifically the inflatable boards have held up. They look just as good as the brand new one that I have now. And these boards have gone through the ringer. Like, of course they're being well taken care of, but they get a lot of use. And the deck pads don't have a bunch of chunks missing out of them. Like, they're in really good shape. And the studio owner actually replaced a bunch of the hard boards with more of these inflatable boards because they've just held up so well. So I feel very comfortable saying that this board is likely going to last you multiple years, assuming you take care of it. But I've been on these boards a lot and they have held up so well. It's a great experience to practice yoga, but honestly, the thing that impressed me the most is just the durability and how they've held up over the years of use. And these have been used commercially. They've been used for business. Paddleboards aren't cheap. It's an investment, and knowing that your investment is going to last multiple years, that gives me a lot of peace. So based on everything that I have seen and I have experienced, I'm a huge fan of this board. And I cannot thank Glide enough for letting me test this board out for my own personal use. So please let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you found this helpful. I've picked a few other videos out that I thought you might enjoy, and I will see you in the next one. I just have to share that this lake was right next to a gun range, and it was the strangest thing doing SUP yoga and hearing gunshots in the background.